Okay, so what the hell's going on with Thailand's weed laws? Everything's changing in 2024. At least that's what they're saying. And there's more questions than answers. Are you going to get busted for smoking doobies in public? Are you going to be able to smoke recreationally at all? Is it going to be available medical, or are they going to throw you in the clink just for thinking about it? I don't have the answers, but I got a professional inside here. This is one of Thailand's premier weed stores, Wonderland. And I got the CEO of perhaps the biggest weed company here in Thailand. These guys know their shit. They know what's going on. And I thought it'd be cool to sit down with them and run over what the hell's happening and what you guys can expect in 2024. So without further ado, let's go into Wonderland and talk to Mr. Ben Baskins. So Ben, it's been a while, man. How's it going?
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. Well, is it going to be a Happy New Year? I guess that's the question.
How happy is it going to be?
Yeah, so what do you know? What's going on? I've been away, I come back, and all this news is all over the place about a potential reversal of laws, a change in what's happening.
Yeah, it's been as you know, it's been a crazy roller coaster with the elections, which we talked briefly at that time. Everybody was happy. And then we've gone through the last 6 months of, hearing rumors about new laws, and the last, going back 2 weeks ago, what we were hearing was that there was going to be basically 4 different laws, right? 4 drafts. And then those drafts, coming from different people, whether it's pro-cannabis or, they got more conservative folks that don't want cannabis at all, right? So, but what ended up happening was Dr. Cholan, which is basically, he's taken over Anutin's position.
So that's the health minister?
Yeah, as the health minister. He came out kind of as a surprise with his draft. Actually, the TTMs, the Thai Traditional Medicine Office, had a draft. They gave it to Dr. Cholan. And then immediately after that, it was like, okay, well, we're just waiting for the other drafts to review those, and then we're going to have the public hearing. But what happened was he made an announcement, and he basically said, listen, this is the draft that I want to present to Parliament. He didn't specify if there was going to be a public hearing or not. And then there was a bit of an uproar in regards to like, hey, I thought there was going to be other laws drafted. The cannabis community had a law. They were getting basically signatures on that law, because you have to petition it. I think it's 25,000 signatures. So that was taking place. So there was a bit of a ray of hope there with that. And then as of a few days ago, as I mentioned, was that the TTM law, Dr. Chola Chat basically said, listen, it's going to go through. There was no mention of the public hearings. And then finally, it was literally 2 days ago that they announced there's going to be a public hearing at Parliament, which is taking place right now.
Right now as we talk.
Right now.
And so let's just go back to the bill. Like what I've heard, what I've read is basically that recreational use is going to be reversed and it's going to be medical.
Yeah.
What do you know about what's in the proposed bill?
Going back a year ago when this was, or 2 years ago, June 9th, when this was passed, it was always the medical thing. And, conversations that we had even, it was about Thai traditional medicine doctors, having them in the stores, having them present, having them assist with any questions. And we always felt that with the initial law, even the first law that Anutin had drafted up, that was going to be a prescription based.
The initial one was a bit of a surprise then, in just how open and lack of any sort of restrictions
there was no
existed.
law passed. Basically, the law hadn't been passed. The only thing that they did is that they took cannabis off the narcotics list, on narcotics, whatever the number was. So they took it off the list, and then they had a draft that never passed Parliament. They never won those votes. So then what happened was you had all of this gray area.
Which resulted in the free-for-all trucks pulling over to the side of the street, opening up shop, and just having
So it was the extreme, because they couldn't agree on that law. Every time it went up for vote, they just couldn't agree on it. So it was a stalemate. And then the new government came in and they said, listen, we're gonna, fix this. We're gonna have regulations. It's gonna be clear. It was always the kind of the threat of the worst case scenario, which this is not gonna happen, is they're gonna put it back on the narcotics list, right? They've gone too far. There's too many people invested in the business. There's too many growers. There's too many stores. There's too many landlords.
Dude, I heard there's over 6,500 stores.
Yeah, there is.
My first thought is that's 6,500 landlords hanging vacancy signs in the worst case.
Yeah.
I can't see that happen. That just can't be good for the economy now that the train's left the station.
No, it can't. It really helped. After COVID, all these landlords were suffering. They didn't have tenants. So you had all these kind of what looked like derelict buildings around the city. And if you notice, around Bangkok, there's a lot of weed leaves, but you have occupancy rates, very high. The landlords, the economy's booming. The whole point of the community is let's look at the society as it is, right? We've got drug use, methamphetamine use, which does cannabis help? In helping those folks? Yes, it does. There's numbers to prove that. Mm-hmm. Alcohol use. I personally, I know 5 people, just in the last, I would say, I heard these stories probably in the last 3 months that were alcoholic, like full rage alcoholics. The guys that I used to see in the clubs that I was just like, oh shit, don't want to see him. Yeah. Just the worst drunks in the world. I won't mention any names.
Sloppy drunks.
Sloppy drunks.
Yeah.
And the stories that they're telling me that now that cannabis is legal, it's like, I've stopped drinking, my life has changed, I'm back with my wife, my kids love me again, my business is in place.
But I think the new law is proposed to keep it medical, right? So I would say that the government here seemingly agrees to some degree, I guess depending on what's considered medical. Do you know anything about how that process would go to get a medical exemption for weed in this new potential world?
The basis of the Thai traditional medicine, right? How they work on the leaves, the stems, not so much the flower necessarily. They don't focus so much on the flower, the roots, right? So they have recipes, ancient recipes, in fact, for all of these things. So the initial, and again, the doctor has said, listen, by no means is this the final draft. We still have to look at how we're going to control it. What are the regulations behind it? So their idea is that they're going to be selling stems, roots, leaves,
so
these kinds of things.
It wouldn't be like the California medical when I moved to LA.
Yeah.
It was medical only. But you could get all parts of the plant. You could get a bud. If you saw your doctor, said, there's a multitude of things that I think you and I both know cannabis is maybe the best treatment for. Myself, I had chronic back problems, trouble sleeping. That was certainly enough in California to get a medical marijuana card, at which point I could come into a shop that looks a lot like this and buy any part of the plant that I wanted as my medicine. Are you saying that isn't what they're thinking about here?
The reality of it, how it's probably going to play out, and we've been preparing for this for a while with our Thai traditional medicine doctors, is basically there would be some kind of clinic where you had a Thai traditional medicine doctor would receive the patient, in this case, kind of like California, like Canada, and then they write a prescription. It's like, you can't sleep, back pain, et cetera, et cetera. We're assuming that it's going to go down that way. In addition to that, the whole talk of products that are made with less than 0.2% THC. And as you may or may not know, that sounds like a low amount, right? But you'd be surprised, because now we talk about edibles.
Yeah.
Right? You'd be surprised because it's based on 0.2%. So you can still get a 5 milligram gummy, that's a nice, not too big, right? That still is below 0.2% THC.
Oh, good.
So there's something just to add to this story is you shouldn't have any problems getting edibles.
Yeah.
The only other little, idea or thought that people are throwing around is that if If it's 0.2%, would that mean in worst case, let's say for example, if they didn't have the doctors writing prescriptions, then what would it be? Would it be, okay, you've got a flower and then you have the roots, the stems, to make up a bulk of that package? So let's say it's 10 milligrams.
Would the 0.2% also apply to the flower itself?
That might be the loophole. Who knows?
Wow, that'd be weird.
That would be very weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the kind of talk that they're having right now.
Yeah.
It's like, 0.2%, and then we're just scratching our head going, okay, how does that work?
That's weird, because again, coming from Canada,
Yeah.
we went medical. This is probably 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
All parts of the flower, medical grade, good production,
Yeah.
licensed shops,
Yep.
see your doctor.
Yep. Yep.
Great, good
Yep.
for the public.
Yep.
And then 10 years on from that, it went fully recreational nationwide in Canada. Again, without, picking different parts of the plant and trying to kind of decide that this is legal, but that part of the plant's not legal.
Yeah.
To me, that doesn't make too much sense.
No, it really doesn't. And, just because probably a lot of people wouldn't know this kind of stuff. So, and if you weren't to study the Thai traditional medicine recipes, because they have these, I believe it's 16, 100-year-old recipes that the forefathers in the medical field before, going back, I don't know, 100, 200, 300 years ago, is that they made these recipes of how to use cannabis. Right?
In Thailand?
In Thailand, yeah.
Ah.
And that's kind of like the law of the Thai traditional medicine doctors. So that's where all of the stems and roots and adding other herbs and so forth to the cannabis flower, or parts of the flower, I should say, came in, because it's just part of their writings.
Yeah.
They've had these recipes, and those other parts have been used for medicinal purposes for a long time.
To me, if you're gonna go medical, if that's what they end up doing and they pull the recreational back, at that point, I would have thought the biggest benefit of it would be the quality of everything gets to elevate. It turns into what I've been used to in California and Canada, where the quality is just top notch, and it is an actual medicine.
Yeah. If I had to go and say, put my bet on something, right? My bet, and okay, I'll pretext this as well, right? Because Canada, America is different than Thailand in the sense that there's a few things that are different. And those things are that there's a lot of different types of businesses in Thailand that function in the gray, right? And that's just part of everyday life. And so, with any law, of course, it's very important that we have a very clear, we have very clear law, we have very clear stipulations for us to operate as a legitimate business, which, we do everything according to the law. We always have, and we always will.
And it'll be hard to police. To put that genie back in the bottle is going to be awfully hard. But I wanted to go back, because you had mentioned you guys have been preparing for this since your inception.
Yeah.
So just walk me through what that would mean to the average person who lives here. Let's say, for argument's sake, it goes medical. The average person who lives or travels to Bangkok, and their home country has has it either legal or medicinal, and they want to get their medicine in the form of a bud or an edible. What happens when they walk in the door of Wonderland here?
More than likely, it would probably be a separate location, which would be next door, because we have a clinic next door. So that's Wonderland Clinic. Mm-hmm. And then we have Thai traditional medicine doctors that we actually, at the clinic, we do different types of treatments, that are cannabis oriented and some that aren't. So as I see it, is that we just transform that into, a medical office for the Thai traditional medicine doctors to write their prescriptions, and then they come over and get their cannabis. Or, if you can write the prescription inside the store, then we would be prepared for that. So either way, in California, it was a separate location.
separate
which a lot
doctor.
of times, yeah.
And then you also get, one thing I'm curious about is
Yeah.
you get a card for a year.
Yeah.
At which point you can just use that card, and every year you have to renew that
Yeah.
card by going back to the clinic.
Yeah.
But you don't need a prescription
Yeah.
every time. You get
Yeah.
the card.
Show the card,
You
yeah.
walk into Wonderland,
Yeah.
waltz into Cloud 9, walk into any, established medicinal dispensary, and there you go.
Right.
Do you think that's it?
Yeah.
How it play out here?
So, what a lot of people don't even know, because it's very difficult to follow through with this, but the law is that we have to record every customer that comes in and take their passport, their name, their passport number, and how much cannabis they purchased, right? And this is a good example of, we do the reports every single month, and we ask every single customer that comes in here, right? Mm-hmm. And we record those names, right? That's in play right now.
Yeah.
Right? So this is just another layer on top of that, right? It would be more strict. So they then would be able to kind of understand with a little bit more certainty that it is the actual person with that actual name and that passport number, if this does take place. And the only way that will work is that if it's an even playing field, which, as you know, in Thailand, a lot of times it never is. My personal opinion would be great if that does happen. But we would be happy for it. We're set up for it. We've got the doctors. We've got the system. We're doing the reports already. Just one last step is this, that everybody's, participating in that. All the way down, Sukhumvit and around Thailand. If everybody follows those same protocols and it's an even playing field, I think it would definitely work.
And then something that's understood and not,
Clear.
set to change unless maybe it progresses like the rest of the countries who've tackled this kind of cannabis subject. Start with medical, go to recreational. There's a natural progression that seems to historically play out in places, but to have it change every year or two must make it tough for guys like you who are just trying to run a business.
You just got to have hope.
Yeah.
Keep the hope. And it's like, we can look at Canada, we can look at America, which America in particular California in particular was very dicey. It's on, it's off, it's illegal, it's medical, that was
state legal, federal illegal.
That, again, everybody that went through that, can probably relate 100% to this. Who knows how it's going to turn out as far as what it says on paper. Hopefully it will be just a really clear really clear law, set of standards that need to happen, and everybody follows them.
Yeah, and what do you think happens from here? Like from a timeline perspective, where does this go? How long does it take to play out? And where does it ultimately land, say, by the end of 2024? What's going on in Thailand weed?
Today we have the public hearing at the Parliament, and then what they're talking about is pretty much that will then have to go to Parliament for the vote, right? So once the public has their say, right, and however that process looks like, if they do actually take in consideration what a lot of the arguments are, or the concerns are with the current draft, whether or not the government will, take action, modify something, that's kind of the unknown. So if that happens, then, we're going to look at probably another month or two that will actually go to Parliament. If that doesn't happen, if it's just like, hey, listen, we don't care, we're just going to try to put this through the Parliament. Because what they're saying is that once it goes to Parliament, they're asking for suggestions from the Parliament of what the actual laws will be. So there's the draft, and that basically just gives you the structure, the overall general kind of structure. It gives suggestions about what maybe the fines will be. Just keep in mind, they still need to, with this draft, they have to figure out what are the specifics? What are the specifics of that? So in that's where we're hoping that the Parliament basically says, hey, do it like California. It worked there. It worked in Canada. It's a great model for us to
That's
follow.
what I expected right from the get-go.
Yeah.
I thought like that's a model that has worked out great,
Yeah.
and it's pretty
Well,
clear
the Thai
cut.
Traditional Medicine Office, they're not specifically saying that at all.
Yeah.
In that law, how it's read, it's basically they've put this really strict structure together based on Thai traditional medicine, right? Because that's what they know. And then as far as the specifics on how they're going to carry it out, they're waiting to hear from the leaders on how that looks like and suggestions, hopefully from the public.
Yeah.
Hopefully from the people that are using the products for medical use.
Well, not only that, like, okay, we could joke and say it's a bunch of potheads down at the public hearing today, but what about those 6,500 landlords in those 6,500 shops?
Yeah.
Like, how many people work here in Wonderland?
Yeah,
Just this
15?
location.
15?
15.
Yeah.
And not every of the 6,500 has 15 people, but there's tens of thousands of retail workers.
Yeah.
They might want to show up to the public
Sure.
hearing. You got the farmers.
Sure.
Imagine how many farmers are now their livelihoods
Yeah.
is now based on this.
Yeah, there's thousands of licenses for the farms.
Given a directive a year and a half ago to say you go make a better life for yourselves. Thousands of farmers.
And that's something they're proposing, is that also to take it out of the hands of the home growers, because they gave out all the free plants. They gave 1 million free plants and said, listen, go grow it in your own homes.
Yeah.
And they're talking about taking that away too.
It's going to be really hard to police a pullback like that when those maybe they didn't give away the full 1 million plants, but there's a lot of people with little home grow setups that might not even get the memo.
Yeah, 100%.
And they'll be like, "Whoa, what?"
And then even the big grows, because you can get the license, you can get the Thai traditional medicine license without the GAP, right? The Thai GAP. Mm-hmm. And so with the license, it's still considered a home grow. And then in order for you to have to qualify as a real professional, how can I say, a legitimate grow that can distribute products, you have to get the GAP. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of farms that still haven't gotten the GAP too. So those would be considered as home grows. So it's not just literally the home grows. We're talking about the mom and pop with 2 plants, but there's home grows that have 50 lights.
So you have full-fledged businesses.
Yeah, full-fledged businesses that maybe haven't heard that because it's not really public knowledge. Mm-hmm. It's kind of that's insider talk that you have to have that. It's not everybody reads the news every day or have somebody telling them that this is taking place. It was there's public notices, but again, who reads all the public notices?
Well, it's going to be an interesting year for weed, man. How are you feeling about all of this?
Like always, we're feeling very optimistic. Mm-hmm. It should be fine.
Yeah, it's a part of the national economy. How much?
It is.
Maybe not crazy substantial yet, but certainly substantial enough that it would, I think, impact tens of thousands of livelihoods.
It would, and tourism. Mm-hmm. We've seen so many tourists over here. It was a great season, and we just stay optimistic, on how it's going to turn out, because we know, how great the plant is and what it does for people. Every day we hear those stories. So just staying super optimistic, telling our team, that it's going to be all right. We've really built a great family around cannabis, whether it's all OG or a lot of the shop owners and their staff. Everybody's really tight, and it's a really cool environment. It's, I guess there's some competitiveness because there's so many shops, but for the most part, everybody's working together.
How many locations do you guys have overall?
We have 12 locations.
12
now.
locations.
12 locations.
Nice.
So we have a CBD shop in that, and then we have a clinic, and then basically 10 stores.
And this is Kush House.
Yeah, Kush House, Cloud9, Mary Jane's, Wonderland.
Yeah, this is a funky place.
Yeah, Wonderland. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna bet my money that by the end of 2024, it will have gone the California route.
Yeah.
I just think that that's, if it's not going to be
Makes sense.
recreational, if they feel the need to roll back recreational for the time being, I'm going to bet that they're going to say California model.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Let's definitely see on that. Hopefully that will be the case.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking forward to.
Yeah, nice. Well, thanks for talking to me. Maybe we do this again in 6 months or whenever this law passes, if it passes.
We'll pop the bottles of champagne.